Hi, everyone. My name is Wendy Swanson. I am the Work-Based Learning Coordinator at Sonoma Valley High School and one of the group that's been putting this event together. So I'm happy to see all of you. Not sure many, it looks like we've got about 25 people on so far. We have about 145 registered. So I hope you all sort of pour in as we move on. But I want to go ahead and get started. To you attendees, students, if you would, we can't see you, but you can ask any questions you want of the panelists in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. The chat feature has been disabled, so you can't use that, but use the Q&A and you can post a question. And then at the end, our Zoom assistant, Brandon Jewell from the CTE Foundation, is monitoring the chat, and he will come on at the end and ask your questions to the panelists. It's possible some of them may see them and answer them themselves, but we'll get to most of them, at least in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panelists. We are very excited to have these three. We have, starting with Lauren Williams. She is currently a sophomore, right, at San Francisco State, majoring in engineering. And she is a former participant in the North Bay Construction Corps. She's a Sonoma Valley High graduate. So she'll be able to give you a very young person's look at the construction industry. We have Gerardo Guzman. He's an architect and designer at RossDrulisCusenbery Architecture in Sonoma, also a Sonoma High graduate. And lastly, we have Doug Hamilton, who is the owner of Oak Grove Construction, which is a large construction company in Sonoma County. Currently, selfishly, I can say that he's currently building the entire athletic field redo at Sonoma Valley High School, which was a really cool CTE Foundation video. If you want to go back and check that out, he gave a tour of the facilities and the construction going on, and it's looking very cool. So we're super excited to talk about the construction and architecture industry, because construction is one of the top 5 industries in Sonoma County, hiring a lot of people. There's a huge sort of deficit of construction workers in Sonoma County because there's so much rebuilding going on with the fires and with the retirement of veteran members of the industry. So it's a pretty exciting industry to get into right now. So I'm going to also, I just want to remind you all students that at the end, we're going to post a registration form if you need to give confirmation to your teachers that you actually attended. So we'll do that at the end. Otherwise, I'm going to get started. So I'm going to ask each of the panelists if they would introduce themselves, provide an overview of what you do in your career right now, your education, and a quick tour through your career path of how you ended up where you are now. So we'll go in reverse order this time. Doug, would you start?
Absolutely. Good afternoon, students. My name's Doug Hamilton. I'm the owner of Oak Grove Construction. We're a grading, paving, and pipeline company in Petaluma. The company's been around for 36 or 40 years. I started my educational background as I have a bachelor's degree from Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, in construction management. When I got out of college, I went to work for a company called Soil Company. I spent 5 years there, started off in the ditch as a laborer, and then I did estimating in the winters. Then I went to Don Dowd Company, 13 years at North Bay Construction, and then I bought Oak Grove Construction. We have 30 employees. We do $6 to $15 million worth of work a year. A lot of tractors. We don't do buildings, even though I have a Class A and a Class B license with a hazardous endorsement. And many other involvements in the industry, from the Builders Exchange to Northern California Engineering Contractors Association, North Bay Construction Corps. And I also teach a 10-week course at Sonoma State about engineering construction, and I'm in my last week of that this week.
Great. Thanks, Doug. Gerardo.
Hey, everyone. I grew up in Sonoma Valley. I graduated from SVHS, as Wendy mentioned. After that, I studied architecture and city planning at UC Berkeley. Got my bachelor's there, and then went right into work. I worked for about 8 years for a residential architecture firm, Zimmerman and Associates, that's based in Marin, and we did homes all over the North Bay, mostly Sonoma County and Napa County. These big, beautiful wine country estates. It was a lot of fun being on the residential side, building people's dream homes. Wendy mentioned some fire rebuilds. So a few years ago, after the Tubbs fire, we did do a few of those as well. Unfortunately, one of our clients, we had just completed their dream home. They were in the house for 2 weeks and it got burned down. But they were able to rebuild, so that's great to hear. And now for the last 2 years, I've been working for another firm in Sonoma Valley, RossDrulisCusenbery, and we do pretty much everything but residential. A lot of civic projects, so kind of courthouses, police stations, fire stations. So I've been working recently on a fire station in Santa Rosa, as well as the sheriff's building up there in Santa Rosa. Also a movie theater in Sonoma, a community center down in Hayward. It's been a pretty good variety of projects. So I've been able to get wide range, which is what I wanted to look for after being in the residential side for a while. I wanted a different experience, and now it's been a challenge for sure, but I enjoy it. I'm learning all the time, and yeah, looking forward to seeing what other sorts of projects I have coming up.
Great, thanks. And Lauren, we know your career path hasn't been as long, and I think I misspoke on your major. I think you're construction management. So maybe give us a little bit of a tidbit of what you've been doing so far.
So it all started with my final semester of my senior year in high school. I was working, I reached out to my career counselor and, I told them what I was interested in and everything. And so that ended up with me getting a internship my last semester with the City of Sonoma Public Works. I was working with the city engineer there, so that was really nice for 6 months. And they offered me a internship for the month of July, so that was cool. Also within high school, I was part of the North Bay Construction Corps. Highly recommend. Amazing program. You get exposed to all of the trades. And if you complete that program and you really put that effort in, you get offered a invitation to the boot camp that summer. I think it's the first 2 weeks in June. So that was really cool. I got to work on a construction site for for rebuilding homes for wildfire victims up in Santa Rosa. So that was really cool. Like I said, if you're interested, always reach out to, your career counselors and, they will definitely find you something. And so, going into college, I go to San Francisco State. I'm currently a sophomore, about to be a junior. So I'm excited about that. Right now I'm associated with 2 organizations. I'm a part of the Society of Women Engineers, and then I'm also part of the American Society of Civil Engineers. And actually this upcoming fall, I will be taking over head of outreach of that org. So I'm very excited about that and that transition process. And upcoming this summer, I will be interning with Oak Grove Construction.
Great, and that wasn't planned before this talk.
Mm-hmm.
We found out that Lauren was going to be interning with Doug after we asked all of them to participate. So that was kind of a fun little coincidence. Okay, so I have some questions I want to ask you all. Actually, the first question I want to ask you has already been asked of you, Doug, in the chat. So it's what sparked your interest in your career in construction?
Honestly, what I really wanted to do was become a naval officer. And so I was on track to go to the United States Naval Academy at Annapolis. I had a very severe football injury that partially paralyzed me. When I was a freshman in high school, I was invited to go to a meeting at the Old Dixie Schoolhouse Foundation, where a bunch of people in their 90s had attended this old one-room schoolhouse, and they were trying to restore it, and they had no money. At the end of the meeting, they voted me chair of restoration, and I was 15 years old. By the time we had restored that old schoolhouse, I had a portfolio and thought that going to college, getting a business degree or construction major, buying old Victorian homes and fixing them up in Petaluma was a great idea. So that started me. I applied to one college only, that was Cal Poly. They had an impacted program, but I was accepted. I have never built a house because while I was in school, I got experience with tractors and playing in the dirt. And after being hurt in football, I just loved being outside again. So that's why I stuck with this aspect of construction.
That's great. Gerardo, how about you?
Mine was, I guess, from a little earlier in age, just playing with Legos and Connects, erector sets, that type of stuff. Was all a big fun for me as a kid. And I think it was sometime in middle school, there was an assignment like, oh, what would you possibly be interested in studying? And that was kind of the first thing that came to mind was architecture, build blocks together, but on a bigger scale. And it just stuck. I never really considered anything else, and I went through with it. And honestly, when I applied to college, I still didn't even really know everything that architecture was about. But what I have learned since is it's part of design as a whole. Everything around you has been designed. The device you're watching this on, the clothes you're wearing, the furniture in your room, everything has been designed by somebody at some point. And there's good design, just bad design. And so I'm designing buildings, but bridges, schools. Doug's been working on the sports fields at Sonoma High. There's a whole lot of design involved there, and it's also at all sorts of different scales. So you look at a whole city, it gets planned at some point, and it starts getting filled up over time, and then got down to the individual details of a door handle, for accessibility. So there's a whole lot that I'm still uncovering about architecture, but I could say design in general is really exciting. And, somebody could become a fashion designer, industrial design, web design is also included under that umbrella. So it's pretty exciting, and there's a lot of different opportunities to be found.
That's great. Thanks. I think every architect starts out playing with Legos, from my experience. Lauren, you know how I love the fact that you're a woman getting into this industry. So can you tell us what sparked your interest?
I would have to be with Gerardo on that. I was introduced into Legos, and I think that's where it all started, pretty much, playing with those at a young age. And, I would always work on Volkswagen Bugs with my dad, rebuilding them and everything. And it was just always a part of my life. And with my mom, on my mom's side, she was always just like, always invest your time in school and, really take advantage of your education, especially at a young age. And so I just always knew that I was interested in some type of building aspect. And going into high school, I discovered the engineering academy at Sonoma Valley High School, and they just introduced me to engineering. And so I did some projects and everything, and then I just knew, engineering was for me. And, as I go through my classes, it's really beneficial going through even the construction core and just getting that exposure. It's helped me through all my classes of the time. So it's really cool. And I just always had a passion for it.
That's great. Thanks. So Gerardo, in architecture, what would you say are the interests and skills that are the most valuable in your field? Or is there to kind of like double up a question, is there a class that you took maybe in high school that you thought was particularly beneficial for your field or for, architecture or design in general?
Okay. Architecture is a very generalist field. We know a little bit of everything. So I have to know, a little bit of structural design, mechanical engineering, electrical engineering. I have to know how to draw. And I have to know how, things come together. And then I also I have to know a little bit about building codes, zoning regulations, people skills is a big deal. You have to be able to speak coherently and convincingly to the client, to your consultants, your teammates, to a city council. On the other hand, we work with a team of engineers, like say a structural engineer who is much more specialized. So they know a whole lot about structural design and they're great at it. But so they're a little bit more focused in that sense, and we're more broad. So that's a little challenging. That you do have to know a little bit about everything, and you never feel like you know enough about that particular subject. If I were to go out to a job site with Doug and have a conversation about some drainage, he would know all about it, and I would know just enough to have a coherent conversation, but that's not my expertise. But that's all part of being on the team together. It takes a whole lot of people. If you go out to a job site, you're going to see 30, 40 different people all going around at the same time, and that's where the construction management side comes in. We on the architecture side are focused on design, so we take a project up to a certain point, get the building permit, and then it goes over in Doug's hands or a general contractor, whoever's in charge of the project at that point, and we're just kind of helping out. So in terms of specific skills, I'd say just being open-minded and being willing to learn, because there's a whole lot of going online and just typing in a question, because there's a whole lot of stuff that I still have yet to learn. So keeping that curiosity always there. I would encourage you all to take classes in art, graphic design, wood shop, metal shop. They're all tools that you'll develop, and it'll help you become a better designer overall.
Great, thanks. Doug, how about you? What skills do you think are most important?
Really, for us, the most important skills are really work ethic and playing well with others. So construction is not rocket science. We're not sending people to Mars. We're still dealing with screws and hammers and nails and concrete and dirt. But the real challenge is to show up early, show up interested, be enthusiastic, learn every day, kind of have good personal skills that you don't get in trouble away from work and bring that trouble to work. And then the other part of it is really just a curiosity. I got in a lot of trouble when I was a kid, so I got locked in my room with a lot of Lego. So I don't know if that's the secret here, but it's just how do things work. And as Lauren said, working on Volkswagen with her dad, is you don't need to be a mechanic, you don't need to be a welder, but you have to be curious, and you need to kind of want to figure out things. A work ethic and curiosity. And then if you've played team sports or you've done theater or somewhere where you've been interacting with people, one of the challenges in the last year is most everyone's been on Zoom, and they have not been falling in love and breaking up and dating and going to the movies and getting a job and finding a different job or going for applications for interviews. So these social skills are very important as far as being productive as a team. Construction is a team sport. You might be off working by yourself at one time or another, but if you're kind of arrogant and you don't work well with others, no matter how early you come in and how late you stay, you probably won't be successful. With respect to education, I did really well in calculus, as I think Lauren does, but I've only used it twice, and I did it to, impress an inspector. I didn't really need it for anything I do on a regular basis. Interestingly, if I were to go back to college and knowing that I'm going to own a construction company, I'd major in psychology and I'd take a minor in business. As much as construction engineering thrust me forward as far as getting job opportunities, it's really my people skills that have my work ethic that's got me where I am. And then strangely enough, in my 60s, I'm learning business management, which would have been a whole lot easier to learn earlier in my educational career.
That's great. Okay, Lauren, I'm just going to ask you what do you think your most important class you took in high school was for what you're doing now?
I would say overall, just having that curiosity and just reaching out and really getting those different classes that you want. I was always into math, math and science, taking those physics classes, trying to get into pre-calc, your senior year roughly, if you definitely want to go that route. Just overall staying focused and, like the others have said, art classes, really does expand your creative skills, and just overall reaching out for your, opportunities that you have at your high school. We had an engineering program at SVHS. And so, I had the opportunity to be introduced into those engineering courses and, drafting skills and being open to that and just taking any learning opportunity you can.
That's great. Thanks. You've all mentioned some experiences you had during your high school and college times. Doug, what's the best way for a student who wants to get some experience in the field to do so? You've been super helpful with me, sometimes getting some students out on job shadows. What are some other ways that students can get some experience?
So the main challenge is that you need to be 18 years old to work with power tools, to drive, to do much of anything. So the main way to get some experience is work with your parents or your uncle or your brothers or wood shop or whatever, so that you at least get introduced to tools and work ethic. But we do have the North Bay Construction Corps currently for high school seniors. That's an excellent opportunity. But this will sound kind of strange, but I'm not necessarily looking for people with construction experience. I'm looking for people with work experience and a curiosity and some level of initiative. I'm very impressed that if you're the state champion in Pac-Man or whatever, but that doesn't tell me that you're going to come in early, work hard, and help make me money. I will tell you that I got one application for an internship this summer, and it happened to be from Lauren Williams. And I followed up, and she followed up, and I followed up, and she followed up. And guess what? That young woman has a job this year. And she impressed me at the construction corps, at the North Bay Construction Corps. So when I saw that resume, I was like, oh my gosh, this is someone that I want to work for me. So it isn't necessarily when you're starting off, but if you've gotten all the way through high school and you never had a job and you weren't volunteering your time and you weren't raising a guide dog puppy or doing 4-H, you have a lot of proving to do to an employer that you have a work ethic. We can teach you construction in about 2 or 3 seasons. I'd love to hear what Lauren has to say after this summer of what she's going to learn in 3 months. But show us you're doing something, investing in yourself and in your curiosity. I don't care what it is. Do something in your 4 years of high school so that when you're applying for a job with someone like me, we don't think you just sat behind a video game.
That's great. And also, Brandon, our Zoom assistant, has put in a link in the chat about the North Bay Construction Corps if anybody's interested in that program. So you can read about it there. Also, I want to leave time for our questions, but I want each of you to tell me your one sentence best advice that you could give somebody wanting to go into the construction industry. So Lauren, I'm going to start with you.
One sentence. I would say definitely having that curiosity and that focus. Just really, experiment if you don't know what you want to do, but definitely finding that one thing or one that you might have the slightest interest. Go for it, focus on it, get that experience, because then in the end you can be like, you know what, that's not for me. Or in the end, you're like, absolutely, I want to go forward with that and work towards that.
Great, thanks. Gerardo, how about you?
This goes for any industry, networking. There's a phrase of it's not what you know, it's who you know. I've gotten a number of jobs, internships just from my connections, and it's not like I'm a special person. It's just, it's my neighbor or, some lady my mom works for. That's all you need to get in contact with somebody. And it's pretty amazing where those networks will lead you. And so utilize those, utilize your teachers, your counselors, and don't be afraid to ask for help.
Great, thanks. Doug, what's your one sentence advice?
Be curious, be persistent, and follow through. If you send a resume in online and they don't call you, follow up a week later. Call, show up with cookies. Don't just roll over and play dead, because if you're not passionate about going to work for that company, they're not interested in you. But if you continue to show passion, continue to show interest and respect and gratitude, the opportunities are out there. We are dying to share our knowledge and experience, but only with people that are worth our time. Make it worth our time.
That's great. Okay, I want to turn it over to for some questions now. So I'm going to let Brandon read us questions from the Q&A.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy. We have a lot of good questions coming through, and hopefully we can get to them all. But I wanted to start out, we keep talking about construction as an industry, but I'm hoping that we can get just some broad understanding about the types of careers within the construction industry. That was one of those questions that we got pretty early on. And so, I'm thinking, Doug, just because being the business owner of a general construction company, maybe you can take the first stab at just what types of careers are available in the construction industry. I know there's a lot.
Yeah, they're countless. The average number of trades in a residential house exceeds 70. So there's more than 70 different specialties, and that's just in a house. You have receptionists, you have operating engineers, you have mechanics, you have estimators, you have dispatch personnel, you have laborers, you have equipment operators, you have drivers, you have welders, you have project managers, you have accountants, you have HR personnel. It goes on and on and on. Just because you don't want to get your fingernails dirty or, play out in the dirt necessarily does not mean there aren't a whole host of options in the construction industry, including being an attorney. You could be a construction accountant or a construction attorney. It is wide open.
Great, thank you. The next question I have, this is going to be for you, Gerardo, is somebody's asking, I've heard that attending college for architecture is very rigorous and challenging. What was your experience?
That's very true. It is. It's not an easy major at all. There was a lot of all-nighters, partially my fault for procrastination. But that's just the nature of design, as you constantly have to work on these projects of you sketch it out, you make a model, you redesign, and from your initial concept sketch to the final product, it's pretty amazing how much of an evolution there is. So Yes, it is very rigorous in terms of the number of hours you have to put into the specific project courses. We call them studio courses, but there's only a handful of those. Aside from that, well, I was part of the architecture major within the College of Environmental Design, so there's a whole range of courses that you take. I took a lot of city planning courses, and I enjoyed it, but it was tough, and I think tough in a good way, that it really pushed you to learn more, and everybody else is in the same boat as you when you're in college, so you're all pushing each other. I really encourage you to join clubs. I was in the student architecture club that really helped me out. I got an internship through my connections there. Yeah, it's definitely not an easy major, but it's rewarding, and I met some great friends there as well.
I'm going to ask you a couple more questions real quick because we're getting a lot of questions. Do you have to be good at art to be an architect?
I'm terrible as an artist. That's one of my regrets, is not taking art courses in high school. It's very helpful to be able to take, a pen to paper and let that idea flow from your mind through your hand. And when you're just trying to convey an idea to a client or to your coworker, you don't have to draw, beautiful portraits, but you have to be able to sketch quickly and convey that idea. Digital tools are very much in demand. So if you're familiar with the Adobe suite of Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, those are tools that we use in addition to all the regular 3D modeling tools. So being good at art is very helpful, but it's not required. It helps.
Okay, well, you actually answered the other question that I was going to ask, which is about the technology. It sounds like our architecture does use quite a bit of technology in the design part of it.
Yeah. So the program forever was AutoCAD, which is a simple 2D based drawing program, and the industry has shifted towards a 3D modeling program called Revit. That's the main one. There's a few others. It's really advanced. You're basically building the entire building in 3D. Like, you make a wall assembly as if you were to build it in reality. So there's a ton of information contained within that model. And what's neat is the structural engineer can build their components in there, the mechanical engineer, electrical engineer, and you get a model of the entire building with all the systems in it.
Okay.
So that's just that one main program. But for you folks starting off, there's two, SketchUp and Blender, which are 3D modeling programs. There's also Fusion 3D is one from Autodesk. Those three programs are much more intuitive, easier to pick up, and there's a ton of tutorials online. So I encourage you to look into those.
Perfect, thank you. Wendy, do we have time for maybe one more? Or?
Yeah, we're a few minutes over, but let's keep going.
Okay, yeah, we're getting a lot of great questions.
Yeah.
One question I just think is just kind of a good question for somebody who wants to become a contractor. Doug, how would you go about getting a contractor's license?
Yeah, so there are a couple requirements, but the number one is you've got to get field experience. So you need to work. You can get credit for going in a construction program, a collegiate program. You can get some years of credit, but you have to have several years of work in the trades. Once you have that and can document it, then you take two tests. One is a law test on construction law, and then one is a practical test about whether you're being a general contractor or specialty contractor. But the best way to start is go out and start getting dirty and start building things, and then find out which, if you still want to go into business on your own, work towards that experience first, then take the two tests.
Great. I'll just should I just keep going, Wendy?
Maybe another 4 or so minutes, and then we'll let everybody go. But the next session doesn't start for 20 minutes, so we're good, I think.
Well, they'll hop on in 10.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, so one of the questions is about the necessity of taking AP Calculus and AP Physics in high school, and specific engineering classes at the junior college. What are your, and I'm just going to ask this of the overall panel, what are your opinions on that? Is that necessary? Is it really important? What do you think?
My experience, and Lauren might validate this, is it's not necessary, but it is super helpful in getting into college. So if you've got these AP classes, first of all, I believe if you get a B or better at AP, it can count as a college class. So you can get college credit. But the main thing is it helps you get in. Obviously, if you got those skills, you're still gonna take calculus in college if you're in engineering. But you got to get into college first to take it.
I would also like to add, yes, again, it is beneficial to take them earlier on, just because it, makes you go through classes faster when you get to college. And again, taking those specific engineering courses, if you have them available, I honestly say take them, because then you get that exposure to find what you like in engineering, because there is so many different realms of engineering as well. So just going in, experiencing what you can pretty much. And again, taking those AP classes in high school definitely does benefit you, but you don't have to. I personally didn't take AP classes, but I did go up to pre-calculus my senior year. And so that was beneficial, because then, right from the start, I started with Calc 1, and this semester I'm finishing math altogether. So definitely fast tracks you if you take it earlier on.
Great, thank you. A couple more questions. I see that somebody is asking about these recordings being available. I'll just let everybody know that yes, these recordings will be available within about 24 to 48 hours. They'll be posted on the Sonoma County CareerFest webpage, which I'm assuming you all went to attend this session. So, and then one of these, let's see. This I thought was really good, is what are good places to contact for more information on how to further our next steps in the field? And I thought this would be specifically, I'd love to kind of call out how some of these students can connect to the North Bay Construction Corps, because as we've mentioned a handful of times, and I have put the link in the chat, I can add it again, but I think that's one of the best ways for high school students, particularly high school seniors, to really get exposed to that. I was hoping that maybe, Lauren or Doug, you want to talk a little bit more about that, about connecting to a program like the Construction Corps.
Go ahead, Lauren.
Connecting with the Construction Corps, I highly recommend, again, just because, within that program each week, you do meet once a week, and they do have different trades come each week. So you get that exposure to see what you like in those different fields, and they have someone from companies do come and, they explain their company and what they do and what they do within that trade. And so you can get contacts to them. Like we've said before, networking is, really great to do, especially if you want to go into these fields and start early, just get your foot in the door, but with these programs, you really can just explore everything, honestly. And if you get invited to the boot camp, that's in June, first 2 weeks, you definitely get to work on what you like, and you get that exposure. And at the end of that, there's also at the end of that program, the 6-month program, there is a career fair where companies come and they do offer internships, and they do get, we get to talk to people, and it's amazing. Definitely changed my perspective within the fields. So highly recommend.
Yeah, and I bet Doug can speak to this, but I know that quite a bit of the people who go through that program, if they want a job afterwards, in most cases, they're offered that. So
yeah, I just wanted to add onto that, that, Lauren said it's a 6-month program, and what it is it's one night a week and one Saturday a month that students participate. And there's a few different locations where it's being offered all over Sonoma County. And I think it's really kind of great that there are people coming out of that program who go straight into working in the construction field. Some go straight to the JC to get more classes. And some, like Lauren and others, go to a 4-year college. So it's every different level of where kids go afterwards.
There's one thing I wanted to add real quickly is that while you're in high school, you can still go to college. You can take classes at Sonoma State or SRJC, and they have construction classes at both locations. And again, that just shows a potential employer or a college that you're interested in, that you're investing of yourself while you're in high school. You can do it concurrently.
Yeah, very true. Is that it, Brandon?
Yeah, I think that's it for the questions. I know we got to get going soon, so.
Okay, I want to thank all of the participants who watched today, and remember that there is a link in the chat if you need to have a registration form to confirm to a teacher that you did attend today. And then I especially want to thank all of our speakers today, Doug and Gerardo and Lauren. We really appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge and your experiences with our students. So thanks again. And if we were all here in person, we would all clap, but we're not. So thanks so much.
Thank you.